Tell you what's not going to change is our conversation with Tom Murphy every Monday and Thursday at 7:20. Tom, you used to cover the Crimson Tide. My parents are going this weekend. I'm very envious of that. I want to eventually make a trip to Bryant-Denny Stadium. I know it's changed a little bit since you were there on a consistent basis, but you think about this weekend, what is playing from the player's perspective? What's it like to play inside of Bryant-Denny Stadium and one of the meccas of college football?
Let's see. Good morning, everybody. Well, they have 100,000 now, so they've added some seats. And I think it's more symmetric than, say, Tiger Stadium, where one side, I think the south, is way up high. I mean, it is really high there. But, I mean, if you just played in Tiger Stadium last week and you go play at Bryant-Denny, then the noise level is going to be similar. Might be a little louder because Alabama typically is going to have more big plays on offense, defense, and so on. But, you know, the one thing that they do there, they have this charging elephant sound, and it's pretty frightening. It's loud, and it can be intimidating, I guess. But really it's the team that plays there that makes the difference. When I covered them for 9 years, they were a relatively tame program, and in fact, I think in those 9 years, Arkansas went 5-4 against them. So a little bit different animal these days.
Yeah, I'd say that's the understatement of the century. Now, Tom, you mentioned just kind of the atmosphere inside of Bryant-Denny. I'm assuming you're going like typical, right?
Correct.
Okay. Well, I hope for when you travel down to Athens, there won't be any car mishaps like you and Trey Biddy had. For those who don't remember, both Tom and Trey got hit while they were down there, and DJ Williams, by the way. They just are no luck for Arkansas media. But I know you remember the game, the opening. Arkansas looked off from the jump. They had multiple pre-snap penalties, and they had some this past game against LSU, which I know has got to be frustrating for Sam Pittman. How does this team correct these penalties that have killed them at points this season when they play a team like Alabama come Saturday afternoon?
Well, that's the $64,000 question, because there's really no – I mean, so Trey Knox gets his helmet, his face mask grabbed and shoved out of bounds, and he's then walking away from it. And
then gets shoulder checked.
He gets bumped a little, and then he gets shoulder checked. And he bumps his shoulder into another guy, and there's the flag. And it's just a thing that happened, and you get flagged for it. Sam Pittman has said on a few occasions, because this has been ongoing. I mean, they're one of the worst penalized teams in the country. They get defensive offsides, they get false starts, they get illegal formations, a few holding calls by some receivers. They have not had a rash of holding calls on their O-linemen, so they got that going for them, and some pass interference calls. I think that some of the false starts are a product of when you're going fast. Things are chaotic very near the snap of the ball, and KJ Jefferson's got the clap, and Ricky Strongberg's calling out line calls, and sometimes it's just a little frenetic down there. It's just a matter of the O-linemen, listening to what they need to listen to and going when the ball's hiked instead of whenever they move. So, and here's the thing: they're 10 games into it. Even if they go very minimally penalized the next 2 games in their bowl, they will still wind up this season as one of the most penalized teams in the country. So maybe it's a focus of some off-season self-scouting. But Sam Pittman says they have refs at every practice, and they have guys who monitor what they're doing with snap counts, and guys get pulled out of practice or what have you, and it just hasn't changed. So it's just something they're going to have to live with. And I wouldn't say that penalties have been a factor that was the determining factor in a win or a loss. The Georgia game was lost. The Ole Miss game came down to a 2-point conversion. I can't remember any super damaging penalties in that game. The Auburn game, they didn't give Arkansas a fumble that they caused down on the 16-yard line, and they threw a pass interference penalty on a ball that was way out of bounds. And that one was referee error.
Tom Murphy with us here on the Morning Rush. Tom, the offense has had to carry along the defense at points this season, but last week it was the defense that didn't just carry along the offense. It dragged them on the ground to the finish line. If not for Barry Odom's squad, that would have not resulted in a win. And part of the reason the defense stepped up because of the play of John Ridgway, who seems to be healthier. It was announced yesterday that he is headed to the Reese's Senior Bowl. And I had some people texting me, does that mean he's gone? I know Pittman's talked about him wanting to try and recruit him back. If he goes to the Senior Bowl, that means he's trying to get drafted, right? Is my understanding correct on that, Tom?
That's the way I understand it. If you accept that invitation, you go down to Mobile. I mean, there may be a way, the way the NCAA operates nowadays, there may be a way that you could step back in. But I do believe there's probably a commitment on your part if you go and partake in that and do the interviews and everything. So I know that Sam Pittman, and he talked last night on his radio show about wanting to get Dalton Wagner back. He's mentioned that they'd like to have Bumper Poole back. Can't imagine that they wouldn't want to have Joe Fouché back and Buster Brown.
Oh, yeah.
So there's some real key seniors on this team, much like the super seniors they brought back this year. They've been integral, huge. Morgan and Henry and Clary and Cunningham just have been huge contributors. So I think you could say the same with this batch that they're trying to bring back next year.
Arkansas has had a year of breaking streaks. SEC wins over Texas, A&M, and others. This is a long streak, Tom. You hadn't beaten Alabama since 2006. You hadn't beaten them in Tuscaloosa since 2003. We're going to have former Razorback Richard Smith, former wide receiver, on tomorrow, and he was a part of that squad. We spoke last segment about certain things you have to beat Alabama. One of those is luck. Another of those is a running quarterback. What does Arkansas have an advantage in? It's probably not going to be much, but what would stand out to you that the Razorbacks might have an advantage or two in heading into Saturday's matchup?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know if you compare O-lines and D-lines and linebacker cores, they've got a collection of 5 stars, and if they're not 5s, then they're 4 stars. So it's hard to say we match up, better than you in one particular department. But I would say linebackers. Alabama's are very good, and Will Anderson is going to be one heck of a guy to try to block in this game. I was watching. I think it might have been their Mississippi State game, and they just couldn't keep him out of the backfield. And Mississippi State operates so quickly that to think that there was pressure on almost every play, Will Anderson was doing that is something. So I do believe in their belief that they can win the game is high, and that accounts for something. I think that they have a much stronger belief in their special teams right now, and they're performing. A.J. Green's had some good kickoff returns. He might get a chance in this game because I think Alabama challenges you to try to get past the 25, and they kick it down to the 1 or 2 with hang time. But Cam Little, you can match him up with just about any kicker. And Will Reichert is a very good one. Mm-hmm. Their punting game probably needs to improve some, but it's been a good year for special teams after the punt blocks that occurred earlier this season. Yeah. Vito Calvarusa is one of the better kickoff guys in the nation.
Isn't that wild to think about how much special teams has impacted these last 2 games where you look at the beginning of the season, you would have never bet on special teams to win you a football game?
Yeah, it has been pretty wild. And, the return game's just kind of steadily gotten better. Perotti had a really good game against Pine Bluff because they outkicked their coverage a little bit. And then Bryce Stevens, where would Arkansas have been without the first punt of the game? They hold LSU. Stevens returns the punt 26, and they only have to drive like 20 yards to get a Cam Little field goal. So that was a heck of a first drive and impacted by special teams. A true freshman catching, I believe he might have caught 1 or 2 more at some point this season, but catching one of his first few punts in Death Valley. Now that's an entrance to college football that I don't know many can handle, but Bryce did it this week. Now,
Tom, you just spoke to Will Anderson, who is in line to be at least a part of the Heisman conversation. You've covered this team. You know this team. C.J. Mosley, Rolando McClain, Reuben Foster, Dante Hightower, Mac Wilson, Courtney Upshaw. Anderson is a part of that special Alabama, Nick Saban coach linebacker core. Would you say that's the position that is the most difficult? And I know Richard's the recruiting guy, but I want your perspective. Is that the hardest position to recruit for out of high school, is the linebacker position?
Well, I mean, it's a difficult position to recruit, and you look at Arkansas after this year. I mean, there's some guys like Andrew Parker and some others who are going to really have to be contributors, and we don't know how that's going to go. Andrew Parker has played minimally after all the targeting stuff that occurred early in the season. So, and that's always been a special position. I mean, Derek Thomas, the edge rusher guy, D-end linebacker, it's been a very, very special position for them. But honestly, lately they've been recruiting so well. You could say they're RBU with Derrick Henry and Eddie Lacy, and just keep on going back. Clint Richardson, Mark Ingram. They've been QBU because their guys, Tua and Jalen Hurts, starters in the NFL, and Mac. I mean, doggone. They're recruiting at such a high level. I mean, that's why they've been in the top 10, top 5 national champion conversation for the last 12 years.
Tom Murphy with us here. Tom, one or two questions more before we let you go. Pats, Falcons tonight. I know they didn't have the best outing this past week. What are your thoughts on we just mentioned Mac Jones. What are your thoughts on that game tonight?
I don't think we're going to have Cordero Patterson. He's been a revelation for us this year. A running back / do-it-all guy who wears number 84. I love it. We just don't have we don't have the weapons to match up against the Patriots. And I hate that because, man, it just seems like we've never beaten the Patriots. I think we have, but not very often.
We'll leave it there, Tom. As always, you give great insight, both recapping the game on Monday and Thursday, kind of setting us up for what's to come this weekend. Tom, be safe driving to Tuscaloosa, and we will recap it on Monday, okay?
Oh, awesome. Everybody have a great weekend. See ya.
All right, good stuff from Tom Murphy as
We're
always.
back, and better than ever, a new web interface to start the basketball season and more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your #1 spot for all basketball and football action this season. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BELIEVE50 to receive your bonus. That's BLEAV 50 to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, and baseball postseason, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts.